Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Before I begin, I just want to say a few words about the ceasefire agreement that was just reached between Israel and Hamas. Pendant plus d'un an, le Canada a demandé un cessez-le-feu et travaillé en ce sens. On est donc très content d'apprendre cette nouvelle tant attendue aujourd'hui. It means hostages that have been held captive since Hamas's abhorrent, unconscionable attack on October 7th, 2023, 15 terrible, grueling months ago, can finally be reunited with their families. And that includes, tragically, the remains of a Canadian. Ça veut dire que l'aide humanitaire qui est si cruciale, comme les médicaments, l'eau et la nourriture, va pouvoir se rendre aux personnes qui en ont tant besoin à Gaza. It means we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, to hopefully put an end to this horrific war that has taken the lives of far too many innocents. Canada stands ready to do whatever it can to ensure the success of this agreement. But more than that, this ceasefire gives us hope. Hope that we can now focus our attention on a true, lasting political solution to this conflict, a two-state solution with Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in safety, security, and dignity. And hope that here in Canada, we can turn down the temperature, truly listen to one another, and ultimately rebuild the relationships between various communities which have been deeply damaged since October 2023. For Palestinian, Israeli, Lebanese, Jewish, and Arab Canadians, I know this war has been deeply hurtful, and I hope that today's news brings some solace, some relief. Je veux remercier le Premier ministre Doug Ford et tous les premiers ministres qui sont joints à moi aujourd'hui pour aborder cet enjeu crucial qu'est l'importance d'être unis pour défendre le Canada, défendre notre souveraineté, alors qu'on fait face à la menace de tarifs de la part de l'administration qui prendra bientôt le pouvoir à Washington. Coming out of this highly productive meeting, we have a shared sense of purpose, a shared sense of understanding, and a commitment to stand together on a united path forward. Because there's no sugarcoating it. The incoming administration's proposed tariffs against Canada would harm Americans. They would put American jobs at risk. They would put our collective security at risk. They would raise costs at a time when people simply deserve a break. And perhaps, most crucially, they're not necessary. Our trading relationship is the envy of the world, and the better path forward is to make it stronger. During the first Trump administration, we negotiated together a new trade agreement, more jobs, more wealth, more opportunity on both sides of the border. It's also a clear win-win of monumental proportions. Today, Canadian electricity powers millions of American homes and businesses each year. Over 4 million barrels of oil are shipped daily to refineries specifically made for Canadian crude, creating good jobs for Canadian and Americans alike. Notably, if tariffs are applied to Canadian oil, U.S. gas prices could increase by up to 75 cents per gallon. And we supply the United States annually with $84 billion worth of minerals used to support the U.S. defense, automotive, and agricultural industries that would otherwise be sourced from places like Russia or China. The approach we want is to build on these strengths. We want to help each other in our time of need, as our brave firefighters are doing in California right now, and as Americans have done in the past when we've faced our own natural disasters. On est tous d'accord? Il faut travailler ensemble pour défendre les relations entre le Canada et les États-Unis qui ont été la source de tant de prospérité pour nos deux pays. I've spoken to the President-elect numerous times since the summer. I was the first G7 leader to sit down with Mr. Trump after the election to discuss some of the concerns he's raised. And we've stepped up by allocating over $1 billion to further enhance the security of our shared border and clamp down on the illicit drug trade and human trafficking. With all that said, if the U.S. administration chooses to still implement tariffs, we will respond purposefully, forcefully, and resolutely. On ne va pas rester les bras croisés. On va démontrer ce que les entrepreneurs, les travailleurs et les économistes des deux côtés de la frontière savent très bien, que dans une guerre commerciale, il n'y a pas de gagnant. Canadians do not deserve tariffs, and I believe Americans should not want tariffs either. We love this country. Canadians love this country. And I and we as First Ministers will never stop defending Canada from anyone who wants to harm it. Canada is a welcoming, inclusive, innovative, and ambitious place. It is home to bountiful resources, breathtaking beauty, and a proud people who've come from every corner of the globe to forge a nation with a unique identity worth embracing and celebrating and worth fighting for. On a notre propre identité, notre propre histoire et nos propres valeurs. On est d'ailleurs le seul membre de la francophonie sur un continent où habitent des centaines de millions d'anglophones et avec ça vient toute une histoire et une culture distinctes qu'on va toujours protéger. Now, no country is perfect, but I do believe that Canada is the best country on earth, and there's nowhere that I or the vast majority of our 41 million strong family would rather be. And that's why I gathered us all here today, the federal government, provinces and territories alike, working with businesses, labor, and stand up for Canada. Thank you all for being here. I thank the premiers for being here especially, and I'm happy now to turn it over to the head of the Council of the Federation, Doug Ford. Doug.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Prime Minister. The ministers as well, Minister LeBlanc, Mr. Jolie, and Ambassador Hillman, and all the premiers. This is truly a Team Canada approach that we're taking. And I just can't emphasize it enough about staying united as Canadians, standing up against these tariffs. Things are going to change in a week when the inauguration happens of President Trump, and if he moves forward with these tariffs. There's never been a time that's more important for Canadians to be united, to stand up, and making sure that our voice is heard. And the retaliatory tariffs need to be hard. We have to send a message when someone comes up and tries to destroy our economy. It will be devastating for Canadians. And that's why it's so important. It is so important that our federal government, our provinces, we support the hard-working frontline people that may be affected by the tariffs. But I can assure, I'm speaking for Ontario, I can assure the people of Ontario that we will be there for them. We'll be there to support them. And I'm pretty sure what I heard is everyone feels the same, no matter the territories or the federal government or the provinces. And I'm just so proud of everyone today. This is an opportunity for Canadians to stand up and be proud. Even when it comes down to going into your local retailer, look at the back of the label. If it doesn't say Made in Canada, pick the can beside it that does say Made in Canada. And that goes to our retailers, a message to all our retailers, all the grocery retailers, other retailers. Start onshoring goods to Canada. Start looking at Made in Canada. If we get hit by a tariff and our costs go up, I'd rather pay a few more cents to go to a Canadian supplier, someone that's producing right here in Canada. If you remember back in the pandemic, when President Trump cut us off on the N35 masks, everyone remembers that? We went and said enough is enough, and we brought 3M with the cooperation with the federal government. We onboarded them in Ontario that we can serve the entire country. We should never be reliant on anyone. We're the greatest country in the world. We're an economic powerhouse. There's nothing that we cannot build collectively across our great country. So I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank the people of Canada for standing with us, and we will never, ever give up. We're Canadians, we're proud Canadians, and Canada is not for sale. Thank you.
We'll now begin the question period. 30 minutes of questions, one question, one follow-up. First question.
Bonjour, Fanny Olivier de Radio-Canada. Ma première question est pour vous, Monsieur Trudeau. J'aimerais savoir, êtes-vous prêt à agir sur le prix du pétrole pour dissuader Donald Trump, même si ça implique d'aller contre la volonté de certaines provinces comme l'Alberta et la Saskatchewan?
Tout d'abord, Comme on l'a dit, tout est sur la table. On a eu une très bonne discussion autour de la table aujourd'hui avec des gens qui représentent passionnément tous les différents coins de ce pays. Et ce sur quoi on s'est mis d'accord, c'est qu'il faut répondre aux défis auxquels on est en train de faire face, mais il faut s'assurer que le fardeau soit partagé à travers le pays. On ne peut pas punir une région ou une autre parce qu'elle aura plus d'impact sur les États-Unis. On va être équitable, mais on sait qu'on va aussi être sans équivoque, que les Canadiens veulent, et nous voulons tous, répondre de façon ferme, dans le cas échéant que l'administration américaine va de l'avant avec les tarifs. C'est pas certain encore, c'est très probable qu'ils vont le faire, mais c'est pas certain encore, et tant qu'ils l'auront pas fait, on ne peut pas prévoir exactement ce qu'on pourra faire. We had an excellent conversation today from around the table with passionate Canadians who are proud to represent very different regions of the country, but who are all united on one thing, which is we will stand up for Canada. We will protect Canadians. We will make sure that we are there to show what this country is made of. At the same time, we've also agreed that no one region of the country should disproportionately bear the burden of standing up for all other Canadians. We have made it very clear that everything is on the table as potential responses, but we've also been very, very clear that it has to be fair across the country. If the American administration moves forward with its plans on tariffs, it will first and foremost hurt American citizens and American consumers, but it'll also hurt Canadians. And Canadians need to stand together to make sure we're there for each other, particularly those who may be carrying a heavier load than others because of what the American administration might do.
Et pour vous, M. Legault, vous avez dit ce matin que toutes les options de riposte sont sur la table. Ça semble contredire, en quelque sorte, votre ministre de l'Énergie, Christine Fréchette. Alors, j'aimerais juste, pour qu'on soit clair, m'assurer d'une chose. Êtes-vous ouvert à ce qu'on augmente le prix de l'hydroélectricité pour les Américains avec, par exemple, des contre-tarifs à l'exportation?
Bon. Première chose, là, puis le premier ministre vient de le dire, puis on est tous d'accord, le premier choix, c'est de ne pas avoir de tarifs. Et donc, on n'annoncera rien avant qu'il y ait eu des tarifs de mis en place par l'administration Trump. Maintenant, si M. Trump met en place des tarifs, faut rien exclure. Faut rien exclure, incluant l'énergie, l'électricité. Faut rien exclure. Il y a plusieurs façons de mettre en place des mesures de représailles. On n'est pas ici cet après-midi pour vous dévoiler ce qu'on fera. On a discuté de différentes mesures, mais ce qu'on a convenu, c'est qu'on n'exclut rien.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau. Mackenzie Ray with Global News. Do you regret not resigning sooner to allow your predecessor the opportunity to be able to deal with the situation with the Americans sooner? And for the premiers as well, Ms. Smith, I don't know if you're here, but Mr. Moe, do you think Mr. Trudeau's lame duck status makes the Canada's ability to negotiate with the Americans more difficult?
The experience Canada had in renegotiating NAFTA in the first Trump administration demonstrated that when we stand together united, promoting Canada's interests, we can do very well, even against a larger trading partner. And that is the focus we have right now. Yes, the Liberal Party is having discussions about its next leader. But right now, our entire focus, and the ministers with me, and indeed all the premiers, is on making sure that we're protecting Canadians every step of the way. That's the job I was elected to do back in 2021, and that's the job I will continue to do until the day at which I am no longer doing it. But right now, my entire focus is on standing up for Canada and protecting Canadians.
I would just make
Should be good.
Saskatchewan's been silenced again.
No.
A comment with respect to, at times, we are going to have differences in policy, whether that be at the subnational level between premiers up here, whether it be through from different provinces with the federal government. And I've never made any secret with respect to where we have differed on policy with the federal Liberal government and the Prime Minister at times, and been very open with Saskatchewan's position on those policies. Maybe that's why I probably could exclude myself today from entering the Liberal leadership race over the course of the next while. That, and I'm not bilingual. But more broadly, and I would say, thank you to Premier Ford and to the Prime Minister for coming together here today to have a very different discussion about those policies where we might not agree, but to have a discussion on how we move forward on what is a very significant challenge, not only to the folks that live in Saskatchewan, but to all Canadians. And there are points in this where, we may have disagreements, but Canadians can be thankful that their 13 premiers, the Prime Minister, and a few federal ministers are coming together not only to hash out and work through what those differences might be, but to understand where we can come together and what the process is over the next number of days and then up to the inauguration, and what our options might be post that inauguration period of time. This is our largest ally that we are talking about, and it's our largest trading partner. It's our most significant trading partner. That's not to say that we haven't had trade tariff disputes with the U.S. or other countries previously. And there is we've been through this before, maybe not as large and broad as what is being talked about now, but we have been through this before. And there is a process to the work that we must do. And I would say that today, that process involves each of us, whether we be a subnational leader or a part of the federal government today or months ahead, whoever that might be, is to ensure that North Americans are aware of the impact that these U.S. tariffs will have on all North Americans, in particular on Americans, and to ensure that everyone is aware, in particular those in the sphere of policy and decision makers in the U.S. are aware of the advantages that we have with the integration of the North American economy and the threat that any type of tariffs, whether they be north or south of the border, bring to our energy security, our food security, the manufacturing security that we have. It's provided, and that value is added on both sides of the border, and we need to double down on our efforts in engaging on those fronts. There's agreement at this table on all of those points, and so we may have policy disagreements from time to time, but there's things that we agree on, and there's times when we do have to come together to represent what is in the best interest of all Canadians, and we in Saskatchewan, we continue to be Canadians.
Mr. Trudeau, do you plan on running in the next election? And if you don't, what are you going to do when you're not Prime Minister anymore?
First of all, I want to thank Scott for that answer. It's rare I get such support. No, I do have to say that particularly those who've been around. Oh, sorry, I'm endangering your political fortunes by thanking you publicly. I do want to say that Scott and Doug and a number of the folks who've been around a while have been extraordinarily invaluable in these conversations, in this Team Canada approach. There's always a lot of politics going on around this country, but to know when to step up in the Canadian national interest and to know that that's what Canadians want to see is really is to the credit of everyone around this table. In terms of my own decisions, I will not be running in the upcoming election. As to what I might be doing later, I honestly haven't had much time to think about that at all. I am entirely focused on doing the job that Canadians elected me to do in an extraordinarily pivotal time right now. The U.S. inauguration and the weeks that follow are something that is of deep, deep importance to Canadians, and we are entirely focused on that as a team.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Next question.
Hi, Kat Tunney from CBC. A question for Premier Ford as chair. Just looking for a vibe check. Do you agree? How much do you agree or disagree with the government's plan to address the tariffs? And should we read into the fact that Premier Smith is not here as a sign that you're not all on the same page?
Well, first of all, I think we're united in a message. If we had our choice, we'd have no tariffs. I've been out there promoting two great countries. We'd be the strongest country, the richest country, the safest country in the entire world. I believe in shipping, in our case, more great nickel, world-class nickel down there. I believe that we should be sending more energy, more electricity. Sorry, but when you have someone that's attacking our country, trying to take livelihoods off people, I'm going to fight like you've never seen before. So that's what I believe in. Sorry, I'm choking away here. Go ahead.
Well, if there are any dissenting views, I'm happy to or interested in hearing those as well. My next question is for, did you want to continue?
I will point out that Danielle did join us for the conversation and contributed significantly. She was unable to make it for the press conference. David Eby is here as well. But no, there will always be robust discussions around this table. Everyone has a job that is defending the interests of their own constituents, their own industry, standing up for the national interest, but being able to come together on a consensus that has largely been supported, as you saw from the KK, this is a good thing. OK. Évidemment, on a toujours des discussions robustes. Il y a des différentes parties du pays qui sont représentées. Les gens sont là pour lutter pour leur paroisse, pour leurs intérêts, mais aussi sont préoccupés, tous et chacun, de l'intérêt pan-canadien. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a pu venir à des ententes très positives et même un communiqué que presque tout le monde a endossé.
You know, something you were mentioning, is there dissent or whatever? Isn't this great that we have 3 political parties sitting down and we have a robust conversation? We may agree or disagree, but we're coming out united. I can tell you, spending a lot of time in the U.S., you would never see a group of Democrats and Republicans sitting here collaboratively. I promise you one thing, President Trump's office, a whole bunch of Democrats and Republicans saying, how can we attack Canada? It's not happening. We have the greatest country. We have the greatest elected officials, the greatest democracy in the world, that we can sit here from one extreme to the other extreme to in the middle. And I have always said, I don't care about political stripes. I don't care if you're from the orange party, the blue party, or the red party. We're going to be united. We're Canadian. We're going to get this done.
As a follow-up to the Prime Minister, is Ottawa considering any supports for industries and businesses that might get caught up in a tariff dispute?
Yes, absolutely. We know that in any response we give, some industries or some sectors might be more exposed or more affected than others. And we've made the commitment to do everything we can. And I know everyone around the table has agreed too, that if their region is less impacted, they'll do what they can to help out regions that are more impacted. This is not an attack on, or this is not a potential a challenge for one particular segment of our economy, or one particular region of this country. This is an attack or an approach that endangers all Canadians and all of Canada. And on this one, we're all standing united in demonstrating that Canada speaks with a clear voice to defend the interests of Canadians.
Thank you. Next question.
Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. Monsieur Trudeau, vous avez parlé du fardeau des mesures de représailles possibles qui doit être partagé à travers le Canada. Ce matin, on a entendu des points de vue divergents d'un premier ministre à l'autre en matière d'énergie. Donc, j'aimerais savoir comment le consensus a évolué entre avant la réunion et après à la réunion, et si je pourrais entendre aussi en anglais pour mes collègues anglophones, M. Ford là-dessus tout de suite après.
Tout d'abord, le consensus a été ancré autour du fait que nous espérons encore ne pas voir de tarifs et pouvoir à la place travailler sur comment on va approfondir nos relations et lutter en Amérique du Nord fort et unis contre des acteurs à l'international qui deviennent de plus en plus problématiques. Donc, renforcer l'Amérique du Nord, c'est notre désir partagé d'un bout à l'autre de ce pays. Par la suite, on a parlé des étapes possibles qu'on pourrait entreprendre pour répondre dans certains différents scénarios. On ne sait pas exactement quelles seront les mesures prises par M. Trump. Alors, on ne va pas décider aujourd'hui quelles seront les prochaines étapes, mais je peux vous dire que sur les premières étapes possibles qu'on va prendre, on a été tous unanimement d'accord. Any comments in English on that one?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Et M. Trudeau aussi, comment concrètement, si on en vient à sévir en matière d'énergie, comment concrètement, quels sont les outils légaux pour agir et comment on pourrait agir étape par étape, comme vous dites?
D'abord, comme j'ai souligné, on espère encore qu'il n'y aura pas de tarifs sur le Canada. On est le meilleur partenaire et allié aux États-Unis. On fait des choses ensemble dans un monde très incertain, de pouvoir créer des situations gagnant-gagnant des deux côtés de la frontière. C'est tout à fait logique, tout à fait responsable. Mais dépendamment de ce que sera le choix de la nouvelle administration américaine, on va réagir en conséquence. Mais on n'a pas décidé encore quelle sera notre réaction précise parce qu'on ne sait pas exactement ce que l'administration américaine va faire. Mais on s'est mis d'accord sur les principes et ce principe de s'assurer qu'il n'y a pas une industrie ou une région du pays qui porte un beaucoup plus lourd fardeau qu'une autre région, c'est quelque chose sur lequel on est tout à fait d'accord.
Merci. Prochaine question.
So Paul Dutch, The Hill Times, to the Prime Minister and Premier Ford. Following today's meeting, was there an establishment of who speaks for Team Canada? Do all the premiers and ministers defer to one point person, or is everyone free to speak to their American counterparts themselves?
We have encouraged, and from the very beginning, encouraged all premiers, all Canadian business owners, all Canadians with any sort of interaction with the United States to engage on this issue and to speak up for the benefits of free and open trade between our two countries, the win-win, the amount of jobs that directly result from in the United States from things we do in Canada and vice versa. It is to be expected that everyone weighs in. It's actually one of the strengths of Canada that we have people from different political parties, different regions, different industries coming down with a similar message, which is we should be working together to create more prosperity on both sides of the border. Obviously, everyone tries to coordinate through our embassy in Washington to make sure that we're getting full information on the conversations that are being had to be able to be as strategic as possible. But it is actually more impactful when Americans see Canadians speaking from multiple perspectives, multiple voices, but standing up for Canada in the same way. That's the heart of Team Canada, and that's why we have such a strong approach on this.
As for the Yukon Premier, earlier today you said you wanted a blueprint about whose roles, who does what, who's in charge of what. Following today's meeting, do you have sense of that, of what roles are supposed to be done by everybody?
Yeah, I think that actually, yeah, just as that question came up and thinking about what was laid out today, you know, I think everybody, look, I'll use a hockey analogy. I think when you talk about Team Canada, everybody can score goals in different ways. I think the key is that everybody is actually has a blueprint about what we are going to message. I think there was good strategy laid out, and I feel very good. Part of the goal here was to wake up tomorrow and understand what the role was as a premier, how we interact, how our levels of government will work together to make sure that we align, and as things become elevated, if they do, depending on what happens on the 20th, we have a clear understanding of how we'll work together and understand how each person's tools they put on the table can interact or can affect other jurisdictions, but at the same time, how they can be most effective. So I'm very happy with what I heard today.
Boris, pour le devoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre Trudeau, l'Alberta, il semble qu'elle n'a pas signé le communiqué conjoint. J'aimerais savoir pourquoi. Et elle nous a aussi dit, elle a aussi dit publiquement, Madame Smith, que le fédéral n'a pas l'autorité de bloquer, par exemple, les exportations de pétrole. Est-ce que vous avez la juridiction en tant que Premier ministre d'agir là-dessus?
La dernière chose qu'on va faire, c'est une bataille de juridiction maintenant. On est tous unis sur le fait qu'il faut répondre de façon robuste. Quelle sera cette réponse? On en discutera parce qu'on ne sait pas encore exactement ce que l'administration américaine va faire ou ne pas faire. Mais il y a eu un grand consensus autour de la table là-dessus. Par rapport au communiqué, faudrait que vous demandiez à Mme Smith pourquoi elle n'a pas voulu signer le communiqué. Nous sommes tous d'accord et je ne sais pas quel sera l'élément avec lequel elle serait en désaccord. The clear consensus around the table is that we need to respond in measured but robust ways to the American actions, whatever they are. We can't know definitively what our response will be, or can't announce what our response will be until we know definitively what the Americans are going to decide to do. We continue to hope that they will realize that tariffs on goods coming into the United States from Canada is just an extra tax on consumers in the United States. It's going to raise prices for consumers in the United States. That's not something that we want. That's not something that I think American citizens and consumers want. So we are united in wanting to move forward to make sure that these tariffs don't actually happen. In regards to why Alberta hasn't signed on the joint communique between Canada and the Council of the Federation, you'll have to ask the Premier about that directly.
En suivi, ma question s'adresse au Premier ministre Legault. Monsieur Legault, pourquoi vous avez décidé de signer ce communiqué et est-ce qu'on doit comprendre que vous accepteriez si le Premier ministre du Canada vous demande pour l'unité nationale de couper, par exemple, les exportations d'électricité ou d'aluminium du Québec?
Bon. Oui. Est-ce que ça fonctionne? Oui. Donc, la première chose qui est écrite très clairement dans le communiqué, c'est que notre premier choix, c'est qu'il n'y ait pas de tarif. Donc, aujourd'hui, on ne sait pas ce qui va arriver la semaine prochaine, ce qui va arriver dans les prochaines semaines. Donc, notre premier choix, notre priorité, c'est de tout faire pour pas qu'il y ait de tarifs. Maintenant, s'il y a des tarifs, bien là, il va falloir voir, est-ce que c'est des tarifs sur tous les produits? Est-ce que c'est des tarifs sur certains produits? Puis après, bien, il ne faut rien exclure. Est-ce que nous aussi, on se pose des questions? On doit se poser des questions sur quel produit, dans un sens et dans l'autre, on peut mettre des tarifs ou non. Donc, c'est trop tôt pour répondre à la question, qu'est-ce qu'on fera? Il faut d'abord voir quelles seront exactement les mesures de représailles de M. Trump pour ensuite prendre des décisions entre nous. Mais moi, ce que je dis, c'est qu'il ne faut rien exclure.
Next question.
If the idea in talking about this is to get Trump to back down and to have this not happen, why not come out with a dollar for dollar proposal right now publicly to show the Americans that we're serious and pressure them to back down on this?
First of all, as we said, everything is on the table, and I support the principle of a proportional dollar-for-dollar response. That is not the question. The question that we ask ourselves, first and foremost, is if the new administration chooses to bring in tariffs, what is it that we can do that will result in the lifting of those tariffs as quickly as possible? That is first and foremost. And what we're doing right now, what we have been doing for weeks, is engaging with the American administration to highlight the investments we're making in our shared border, to respond to concerns that they've expressed. We've laid out a number of different things that matter to them. We know that the last thing the new administration wants to do is raise prices on American consumers for all sorts of goods. But that will be the consequence of these tariffs if they come in. So we are both trying to prevent them from coming in, and if they do come in, we will try to get them lifted as quickly as possible. And like I said, we will use any and all tools necessary as a country to stand up for Canadians.
And I understand Danielle Smith has posted online her sort of reaction to this and why she didn't sign the communique, saying she can't support what's going on today because the idea is still being floated about putting an export tariff on our oil and gas. So what's your reaction to that? Why were you unable to bring her on board with this?
Doug, you want that?
Well, you know, that's what's unique about our group. You know, everyone has their interest at heart, and I respect Premier Smith. I respect that she's concerned about protecting her energy, and that's her choice. That is her choice. But I have a little different theory. I have a different theory that protect your jurisdiction, but country comes first. Canada is a priority. And I don't believe in jeopardizing one sector or another. Premier Smith's oil is Ontario's auto sector, right? So again, we all have different views, and we can respect each other's views. But at the end of the day, when the tariffs come, it's going to affect Albertans. It's going to affect people from BC and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, all the way down the road. No one's exempt from that. And all I believe in, if it comes to that, let's have the tools in our toolbox to react, to send a strong message. But it's not going to be all of a sudden one province or one territory is exempt on this. When Donald Trump comes at us, he's not going to say, well, let's not worry about Ontario, they're good people, or Alberta. He's coming full tilt at Canadians as a whole. And that's one thing we have to understand. We need to be united. Donald Trump is a brilliant negotiator. That's what he's done his whole life. That's exactly what he's done. And he's sitting there with a big smile on his face thinking, wow, I'm going to divide and conquer. Remember one thing, united we stand, divided we fall. We need to be united.
Can I jump in there?
Just a sec. Well, I'll pass over to you in a sec. I just want to point out something in what Doug Ford just said. Doug, the incoming American president specifically and has explicitly targeted one industry in Canada, one sector of the economy, and it's not the Alberta oil industry. It's the Ontario auto sector. It's an auto pact that has been incredibly successful for 50 years in building cars on both sides of the border that benefits both Canadians and Americans. That's the target. But you don't hear Doug saying, oh, no matter what, we got to protect the auto. Yes, he does say that, but it's not at the expense of everything else. He's just pointed out that he's a Canadian first, as much as he's passionate about Ontario. And I think that's something that we all share across this table, of saying, you know what, the interest of this country means we're going to have to look at everything we can, and we'll make sure that it's fair across the country, but nothing can be off the table if the U.S. continues to choose to move forward with these punishing tariffs on both Canadians and Americans. Sorry, Wap, didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, thanks for convening the meeting today, Prime Minister. And Doug Ford, you're doing a heck of a job as the chair of the premiers this year. You're communicating in a straightforward, direct, straight-up kind of way that we need right now. And great hat. I hope they make that in an orange as well. Maybe able to wear that in the prairies.
I'll pass on the red one.
Yeah. I wasn't going to make the red hat joke, but Prime Minister, you made it. What I did want to say is that there is unity amongst the premiers of the provinces, the territories, the federal government, and where we have unity is that we're going to stand up for your jobs, and we're going to make your life more affordable. We want to keep standing up for our economy, and we're also united on the fact that Trump's tariff tax is going to make life more expensive in the United States of America for the average American person. So I'd hope that Canadians look at the meeting today and feel a lot of pride. I hope that there's Canadian pride in the fact that you can have Liberals and Conservatives and New Democrats and nonpartisan leaders coming together to stand up for your jobs and for your way of life. And I hope that that sense of pride that we have a Canada with a functioning political discourse like that spills out into the broader society, so that when you go to the store, that Canadian pride leads you to buy that made in Canada product. That when you make your big decisions, that you choose to make investments here. We need a national economic strategy that builds on the pride of the worker who builds things and makes things in this country, so that our kids and our grandkids are going to have a much more prosperous, even more prosperous Canada than we have today. And I'd hope that your Canadian pride also filters into your decisions about where to take your vacations this summer. And to, spend some more dollars here at home. Manitoba is beautiful. In the summertime, you have an open invitation, and now we're all going to trip over each other, inviting everybody to the respective regions. Winnipeg Jets may be on a playoff run.
Okay, come on, Wap.
But the point is, Canadian pride is something that we can really lean on right now. And there are a few things that unite Canadians more, for better and for worse, than our neighbor to the south. And so right now, as you see leaders coming together, I think it's a great moment for Canadians to come together as well.
Well said.
Thank you very much, Premier. This will be the last question.
Raymond Filion, TVA. Question pour le premier ministre Trudeau. Vous êtes en fin de mandat, il vous reste moins de 2 mois. Est-ce que votre position politique nuit au Canada dans le contexte actuel?
Au contraire, je pense que le fait que je peux mettre un peu de côté la politique partisane et me concentrer sur le bien-être et l'intérêt des Canadiens, de laisser un Canada fort, uni et prêt à affronter tous les défis. C'est une opportunité pour moi de travailler avec mes collègues sans me préoccuper de partisanerie pour pouvoir prendre charge d'un enjeu incroyablement important, ce qu'est la position du Canada dans le monde, particulièrement par rapport à nos amis à notre sud.
Au sujet de la santé, 1,5 milliard en compression de postes. Il y a des gens qui s'inquiètent que ça va avoir un impact sur les services. Qu'est-ce que vous dites aux Québécois et est-ce que vous vous engagez à garder cet argent-là dans le réseau pour le garder à flot?
Bon. D'abord, ce qui est important de dire, c'est qu'en santé, depuis que je suis premier ministre, depuis 2018, on a augmenté le budget de la santé de 50 %. Il y a eu une augmentation importante à chaque année, incluant cette année, l'année 2024-2025, qui se termine dans 2 mois, le 31 mars, et il n'est pas question de réduire ce budget-là. Par contre, on demande au réseau de respecter le budget, ce qui est de la bonne gestion.
Thank you very much. That concludes today's press conference. Merci tout le monde.
Merci tout le monde.